Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. This is Otaku Showboat, and today I'm starting off with a little bit of a different start, and already my stream has disconnected. What? Wow, like the moment I start streaming, like I actually start, I disconnect. So, oh boy, that's such a shame. That is such a shame. Yeah, and there's the message. Welcome to the chat room. It is the first time today that this has happened, and I'm on my wireless connection. I'm on my wireless connection, and it's still, as of yet, not reconnected. Now it has reconnected. Just now it has reconnected. So let's start that over from scratch, because that was just highly annoying. Hello everyone and welcome to the stream. This is Otaku Showboat, and today I wanted to start off by doing something a little bit different. As you can see, I've got my chroma key turned off, and you can see the whole picture of what is behind me. In particular, you can see this little strip of what is a big bookcase right next to me that I've never quite been able to fully hide without making the green screen too close to the back of my office chair. Which is why when I go to this screen, I crop the edges so that you don't see this. But anyway, today I wanted to start by talking a little bit about E3. This particular week, today, in fact, being Monday, June 10th, 2019, this week is the E3 event, the yearly E3 event, and all of the news is coming out from E3. And I have to tell you, every single year to this point, I have been highly enthusiastic about watching the conferences in particular from E3. However, this year, not so much. This year I have basically no interest in what's happening with E3, and I think most of that is due to Sony not having a conference this year. I think that's played a huge role in it, because I know that they're working on the PlayStation 5. I want to know information about the PlayStation 5, and they're not presenting at E3. So, though that combination of factors is telling me, why should I care about anything else that's happening on that front at all right now? So that's most of the reasons. There's also the fact that I haven't been quite as enthused as well since Nintendo stopped doing live conferences. It's been several years now since Nintendo's done a live conference for E3. They do basically a Nintendo Direct for like pre-recorded video for it. Now, I am looking forward to that coming out. In particular, I'm looking forward for news on Animal Crossing in particular. But otherwise, and maybe they'll have a little bit of Pokemon Sword and Shield, but they sort of already had info on Sword and Shield, which I'm also looking forward to. And traditionally, Nintendo hasn't discussed the mainline Pokemon series at E3. Like, if they do have that at E3, this year, know that that is an exception to what they usually do, because they usually don't talk about the mainline Pokemon series at E3. Um, but anyway, as far as Ubisoft is concerned, I don't really play Ubisoft games. And Square Enix, their conferences have historically not generally been all that particularly great, and they've actually shown off stuff that should have been exclusively in their conference in other conferences. So that they've generally been more of a letdown overall. And since the main games that we're looking forward to have been trickling out lately outside of the Final Fantasy VII remake, I think that's the biggest thing they've got going for them at the moment. Maybe they've got some new things up their sleeves to talk about, but I really, at this point, I've just stopped caring about them. And then, elephant in the room, yesterday was the Microsoft and the Bethesda conferences. Now, I will say this right up front, I did not watch the Microsoft conference. Not at all. And I've been reading some of the information that has come out from it, but I'm not impressed. Not in the slightest. So they're coming out with a new console. Great. What's going to be exclusive to that console and not also available to be able to be played through PC? Until they can answer that question, I am not interested. Because the Xbox One, I own an Xbox One for one reason and one reason only, and that is this. This is the one and only reason why I own an Xbox One. And when they announced that this was coming at an E3, that is when I bought an Xbox One. So, Rare Replay. Not even a new game. Not even a new game. And many of these are just straight up ports from what was available on the 360. Now, I never owned a 360, and as of Tales of Vesperia now being available on PC and other systems, there is no longer a reason for me to ever own an Xbox 360, because that was the only game that I would have been interested in owning an Xbox 360 for. Every single other game that is a pure exclusive on Xbox One, I don't care about. Like, I have never really been into shooters, especially Halo. Like, I really don't care about it. Not one bit. And again, speaking of shooters, the other thing they got going for them, Gears of War, it's like, that's another shooter. And I'm not very much into shooters. Keep that in mind. Now, compare this to the PlayStation 4, where we've got Persona 5, which, albeit, is also on PS3. We've got the Project Diva series, Hatsune Miku Project Diva series. That one's X, and they've got Future Tone at the moment on PS4. PS3 has F2nd, of which, I've been into. That's a rhythm game series. They've got Bloodborne. They've got Shadow of the Colossus remake that I still need to play. They've got the Utawa Mono games, both of them. They've got Horizon Zero Dawn, which I own digitally, and they've got VR. Say hello to the one and only real reason why I even own a PSVR in the first place, and screw you, Bethesda, for then also releasing Skyrim VR on PC later. So now I own, gosh, how many copies of Skyrim do I own? I own the original version with its DLCs on PC. I own the special edition on PC. I own the VR edition on PC. I own Skyrim VR on PlayStation 4, and I own the Nintendo Switch version. So, I think the point has been made clear that when it comes to exclusive games, and every single one of these is a PlayStation exclusive that you can't play on PC. Xbox has been moving towards being able to play their games on PC as well. Even if you own, like, the Xbox version of the game, you can play it on PC. Well, why would I own a console? Why would I buy their console if I can then just play it on PC in the first place? So that doesn't make any sense. And if it's going to be exactly the same with their Project Scarlet, why should I own their Project Scarlet when I have a PC that can do the same thing, if not better, than what they're producing? So that's one thing. And with Sony not being at, or presenting at E3 at the very least, that's a big letdown because they have good games that I actually enjoy playing, and then that's just the exclusive stuff I own for the PlayStation 4. I have a few other games that I own that aren't technically exclusive to PlayStation 4 or have seen releases on PC since the release on PlayStation 4. I think I've got Final Fantasy 15 and 12 remaster, and then the and then I've got like the whole, like, the single package of the entire Kingdom Hearts franchise until 3. I don't actually own 3 yet, which, oddly enough, if you haven't bought Kingdom Hearts 3 yet, the last time I checked on Amazon, it was like over half off. Like, it's really gone down in price. But then we get into the concept of, so why does this matter? So the reason why I own, like, PlayStation 4, several reasons, is because it has games that I cannot play on PC. Why does that matter? Well, it's because the system itself is sedentary, and my PlayStation 4 is actually sitting right under my desk right now, and I can play the games on the TV that's literally next to me, the 50-inch TV that I have sitting next to me. I've also got my desktop screens right here as well, and that's actually, that TV's my third monitor. If I can have it on my PC is a much better system to play games on, that I can play at much higher visual fidelity at much higher frame rates overall. So why would I buy something on console that I could also on PC if that is the case? Here's the exception. You may have noticed that I said I have Skyrim on Nintendo Switch. Because Nintendo Switch is a portable system, my reasoning isn't quite as valid to not own a game on Switch that I already can get on PC. Just because it's portable. And I can then play these games outside of where I have my computer. Now, when it comes to Switch, Switch has its own set of games. Of course, there was Breath of the Wild. There's also Odyssey, and Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and Xenoblade 2, and Fire Emblem Warriors, and the the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee games, and like Disgaea 5 ended up here. It's also on PC. And The End Is Nigh, also on PC. These are all great games to have on a portable system. Granted, I haven't even gotten around to playing quite a few of these games that I've just shown yet, because there's just so many of them. And you can clearly see how much of a Nintendo fan I am compared to even the PlayStation 4 games that I own. I own quite a bit through PlayStation 4. I own more through Switch. Just straight up, I have more through Switch. And then Switch has its own downloadable stuff that I also have some games through. In particular, I do have Stardew Valley through the Nintendo Switch as a download-only game, as well as on PC. And then I have Golf Story. Golf Story is an amazing game on Nintendo Switch that is download-only. So yeah, the point here is that even though there's a number of these games that are also available on PC, The End Is Nigh, Disgaea 5, and Skyrim in particular, these three, even though these are available on PC as well as Stardew Valley, the fact that the system is portable makes a big difference. So whenever I see a title that is available on PC, also launching on Nintendo Switch, I am always highly tempted to buy it on Switch as well as PC to have both of those copies. So, how does this all relate to E3 as I sort of try to make things not quite as messy next to me? It's partly to say that, or explain my reasoning why it's disappointing that Sony's not there. It's always disappointing that Nintendo doesn't have a live presentation, but what's coming on Nintendo's front? That would be the one show that I would look forward to most out of E3. But what do they have coming that we don't really know most everything about yet that matters? Well, I'm expecting that they're going to show more of, gosh, it has escaped me. It has escaped me. Fire Emblem Three Houses. That's the one that I expect them to basically showcase, because that one's releasing in July. And I have that pre-ordered, by the way. So that's like the next big Nintendo game, I think. But when it comes to other franchises like Metroid, I've never been into. Kirby, I've never been into. Yoshi games, I've never really been into. They've got Mario Maker 2 coming. That, again, it's not really one that I particularly care about. I'd rather see them make another 2D or 2.5D platformer than basically anything else at this point. But the one thing that we know is coming that we haven't really seen yet that I would like to see is the new Animal Crossing game for Nintendo Switch. That's like the one thing that I would have any amount of hype for would be Animal Crossing on Switch. Oh, and then let's get into, very quickly, to wrap all of this up, Bethesda. So remember what I said about shooters. So what did Bethesda have to actually show yesterday? They showed Doom Eternal. I have played Doom 2016. the most recent one. So remember what I said? I'm not that into shooters, but I did play Doom. And so I say I'm not that into shooters. That's not for lack of playing shooters. It's just that I'm not super into them. So it's like I will play them. I don't actively avoid them like the plague. I will play them if they're good. It's like, come on, Doom has that historical background to it, and I had wanted to play it. However, at the time, was supremely disappointed by how long it is. That's another one of the reasons why I don't like shooters all that much. Is that I play games for the story, and shooters historically have stories that are like 6 hours or less, and it's like, do I really want to pay $60 for that experience when I'm not playing it for the gameplay per se? Because I'm not into shooter gameplay mechanics. Not really. So Doom Eternal, it'll be great when it costs $25 on a sale 2 years from now. That's my take on Doom Eternal. My take on the recent Rage 2, very similar. Very similar. My take on the Arcane game Deathloop that they announced. If it's going to be like the Dishonored series, maybe? But we have to actually see the game. That's my take on it. We need to see it before anything else, before any other determinations can be made. And the same applies to the Ghostwire Tokyo game that they announced. It's like, that's a great CG animation game. I have not played Evil Within. I am not into horror games. Those are games that I actively avoid. If you want to talk about series that I actively avoid, or genres that I actively avoid, horror is the one that I actively avoid because I just do not enjoy them. I do not get in any amounts of enjoyment out of them. But if this is what they claim it to be, more of an action-oriented game with these supernatural elements to it, that I can get into. I can get into that. But again, we need to actually see gameplay for it. And then the whole, like, Fallout 76 stuff, it's like, you should be fixing your game. Why are you doing this extra stuff when you should be fixing your game in the first place? It's not fixed yet, as far as I can tell. I don't plan on ever playing it in the first place because I don't see it as an actual Fallout game. It's like, this isn't Fallout. They're gonna make it a little bit more like Fallout by adding the NPCs to it, but it's not Fallout. Just straight up, that's no. And then ESO, I haven't really played ESO. I technically own ESO. Technically. But I never really got into it. I thought it was boring. Like, that was my initial experience with the game. I thought it was boring and had wonky controls at the time. And when I sort of tried getting back into it, it's the same thing. I didn't really care for it. Didn't seem like something I wanted to really throw my thousands of hours into. That would be necessary for such a game. But other than that, mobile stuff that they talked about, that, again, I don't care about. Blades on Switch, that is probably the one thing. I might try out Elder Scrolls Blades on Switch when it releases on Switch. So, Yay! One thing, take away. That was great. Or could be great. And maybe by that point it'll actually be a game worth playing. Because it sure as heck doesn't seem like that right now. But other than that, what did we really get out of this? Some footage of Doom Eternal, which, if you know what Doom is, it's more of the same, which is great in some respects, but again, I don't expect the campaign, time-wise, to be worth the cost of admission for me. So that one I will be waiting for some sale later on down the line. Wolfenstein Youngblood, again, shooters. Again, while Wolfenstein, that their games that they've been making recently does have a good story, that one is more story-based. Again, it's always too short to be worth the full price of admissions for me. I like having quality experiences that last a long time. So it has to be a good experience that lasts. That's how I define value for video games, and traditionally, shooters haven't really met that criteria for me. If it's not something I can really sink a lot of time into with gameplay content that I truly enjoy playing, then it's not really worth it for me. Something like Xenoblade 2, for instance, with a couple of hundred of hours worth of, let's call it at least semi-quality gameplay, in terms of grindiness, is great value. I place a lot of value towards the cost of something like Xenoblade 2, or for Mario Odyssey, or for Legend of Zelda. But when it comes to shooters, I don't place as much value behind what usually ends up being a 6 to 9 hour story. Even if the actual mechanics are great, once I go through the story, I'm not much of a multiplayer person, so I don't have any more reason to play them. Anyway, that's my thoughts on E3 thus far, and just my take on gaming in general, to give a general idea to go behind my reasoning why I'm not so hype about E3. There are things that interest me. Like, I am interested in, for example, the announcement of Tales of Arise, because I have followed the Tales series for quite some time. I really need to go and actually play through Tales of Berseria, which, if I'm not mistaken, is their most recent Western Tales release. If I'm not mistaken, that's the most recent new Tales release. They came out with Vesperia fairly recently, but Vesperia was originally an Xbox 360 exclusive in the West, as I mentioned before. And they've been releasing their Tales games on PC, but I will be very interested if they're releasing a Switch version as well, because I might be buying my Tales games on Switch. I like buying my Tales games on Nintendo consoles because that's where they originated, or reference. The Tales series, much like the Final Fantasy series, I should note, started with Nintendo. The first Tales game, at least the first one that was it even released in the West? I don't even think it was released in the West on Super Nintendo, but there was a Super Nintendo Tales game. It was Tales of Fantasia, and I know that Tales of Fantasia, at least later, got a Western release in the form of a Game Boy Advance version, which was what I played. My first Tales of series game that I played was Tales of Symphonia on the GameCube, followed then by Tales of Fantasia on Game Boy Advance. Um, and I really, really enjoy those games, and I have enjoyed the Tales games that I have played since. So I am definitely looking forward to Tales of Arise. I sort of already know what's involved, because the Tales series is sort of like a Final Fantasy series. When you get a new version, unless there's something drastically different, like with Final Fantasy 15, you sort of know what you're getting into when it comes to a Tales series. Um, Other than that, it's just Nintendo. Nintendo's like the only conference, quote, conference that I'm looking forward to any degree of hype, but it's just incredibly disappointing that Sony is not here to, at the very least, respond to Microsoft's Project Scarlet announcement. But we shall see. When they announce, I'm sure that Sony has taken all of the information that was presented by the Project Scarlet conference and are actively coming up with a response to it, because they did this exact same thing back with the release of the PlayStation 4. They purposefully held their conference after Microsoft's so that they could undercut the price of Microsoft's Xbox One, which was just incredible at the time. That was one of those moments in gaming history that will be talked about for a very long time, and will continue to be talked about with the release of Project Scarlet, as something that Microsoft has to avoid falling into the trap of. But I think because they've technically announced first, they're still going to fall into some sort of trap. Because I think Sony's going to come out and have a direct response to this in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, that's. And ideally, it'll be in the form of VR as well. Ideally, because that's one thing that is notably absent from Project Scarlet is any discussion of VR, and Sony has the PlayStation VR system. I do hope that they don't have to release a new headset like a PSVR 2. I do hope that they don't have to do that. I hope that what they can do is give an increased visual fidelity to the system that they already have. Like, I hope that I can use my current PSVR with better quality visuals through the power of the system. Because, honestly, the PSVR headset, I own a PSVR and I own an Oculus Rift. The PSVR is the more comfortable headset to wear for someone like me who wears glasses. The Oculus is incredibly uncomfortable. It is honestly awful. I hate the actual headset connection of the Oculus. I love the graphics that my PC can pump into it. I hate actually wearing the thing. The PSVR is the reason why I even play this version of Skyrim over my PC version, is because it's more comfortable and I can wear it for longer periods of time comfortably. Anyway, I've gone on way too much of a tangent at this point and been talking for over half an hour. I would like to thank you all for watching. This has been Otaku Showboat. I will now be transitioning into playing Factorio as I usually do on Mondays on my stream. I will be back soon.